Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of mathcore, looking at songs that fit into the mathcore genre, which, if yesterday is anything to indicate, is just kind of chaos. So today we're going to be diving into a band called Botch. The song is Transitions from Persona to Object. Let's dive into this and see what they have in store for us. Interesting, this part is in 5 and the heavier part is in 4. Yeah, no tempo change, but we are losing a beat when we go heavier. Yeah, we got a little bit of a light, like partial clave. Oh, of course it didn't do this time. Alright, that was back to the 5. We had a tempo shift here. Ooh. So the snare has actually been leading the time signature up until this point, and now it's providing a polymetric idea against the time signature, and it's making it really hard to find. Shifted to a 5/8 unless we doubled the tempo and went back to 5/4 just ridiculously fast. Lots of noisy elements in here. I'm so conflicted on this part. Yeah, back to the 5, but bringing in more of that tension that we had in the last section of dissonance. Brought it up. Interesting. Yeah, so you can feel the 5 in the cymbals right here. We're gonna rise again. Oh, we stayed. So we're gonna come back to the root. I have no idea what these guys are doing. That panning idea was slick. Yeah, tempo shifts. Not tempo shift, the drums weren't moving. Alright, bringing back an older idea and a new concept. Shifting between an older idea and a newer.
Your second to last chance to dance. This next song is for Canadians.
I'm going to rewind that back just a second because I was feeling that in 5 for a long time. There's a shift and alright.
This next song is for Canadians.
Interesting. So a lot of the song, the five sections have been a long against short. So we'll have a section of 3 and then a section of 2. So we have this longer beginning of the bar and a shorter end of the bar, and that's what has given us those quicker snare hits in the second half, because we have downbeat or snare strikes traditionally through the song on 1 and 4. That is sort of the pattern that they created up until that ending point, in which they were attempting to split that in the middle, and we got hits on the offbeat of 2 and on 5. Yeah, so that's every 2.5 beats. And they split it right down the middle, and it feels So weird, especially when I've already been conditioned by the previous sections in the song to feel the 3 versus 2 idea rather than feeling a 5 bar completely in half. But what's even interesting is that the cymbals are not doing anything related to this. I don't know what the cymbals are doing. It almost feels like they're implying a 3. So there's this 3 against 2.5 idea going on in the drums, which is just, it's so close to a hemiola, but it's just off that it feels completely different. It has a very different feel. Hemiolas are 3 against 2, and it's sort of like a, so that's a traditional hemiola. And like I said, this one's just a hair different because it's 3 against 2.5. Well, technically it's 3 against 5. So it'd be 1.5 versus 2.5, which is nowhere near hemiola, which is why it feels so weird. Yeah, these guys are just doing weird things all over the place. However, though, I do want to point out right there at the end, I thought it was really interesting how the drums started out when the guitars faded out and the drums kind of simplified what they were doing. It was really interesting to hear a very bare bones drum idea, just sort of laying down this 5 idea, this 5 pulse, and then slowly adding ornamental elements and just ornamentation on top of it, embellishing ideas. Every 2 bars or whatever, you put a little cymbal run in there, like 3/8 notes on a cymbal. Might have been the hi-hat. Just to sort of spruce it up. And I love looking at the mind of really rhythmic performers and seeing how they can take something that to me sounds so foreign. Like this is a time signature, not necessarily just a time signature. There's a lot of polymeter going on in here, and just absolutely feel it and be able to groove inside of this really odd polymeter, like it's nothing, like it's 4/4, like it's just so normal to them. And I love listening to drummers. I think I talked about the same thing like a year ago when we checked out a drum cam of the dude from Animals as Leaders. Was that Arithmophobia? Might have been Arithmophobia. And just watching the dude groove within these wild polymetric ideas where like every limb was in a different meter, but it still came along into this really tasty groove. And just watching him put these little fills and embellishments that almost seemed improvised in it. And that's the same thing right here. Just you get something that, I would feel lost in. I would need something rigid, sheet music, something defined to play, because I'm going to be worrying so much about staying in time with everything that I'm not going to be able to improvise on it. And this dude he's at home in this really strange 3 against 5 idea that he's got grooving on in here, and he's just chilling in it, making some stuff up as he goes while the vocalist is getting the crowd going or whatever. It just blows my mind. It really does. The way that people can just feel some really complex rhythmic ideas and just be at home in them. So yeah. Much like yesterday, we have very chaos here. There is a lot going on at a lot of times. There's a lot going on the micro level. If we just look at a single section and all the layers that are existing there and how they're clashing and sometimes supportive of each other, and then looking at it in a larger section of just the overall flow of the song and its atmosphere and vibe, there's just a lot of chaotic elements there as well. So I guess we're going to start at the small and go up from there. So individually, we look at some of these more chaotic sections because they do have a few sparse sections, as we saw in the beginning when we had the sparse 5 against the very full heavy 4, where we were alternating between those two ideas. So they do have some sparser sections that are still tense, right? They're not entirely consonant. We have an odd time signature in here, so even though there's not a lot of layers going on, there's not a lot of dissonance in this section, it's still not fully palatable. It's still abrasive in some ways. And then we get to the 4 after it, and we've got the bass, we got guitars, we got yelling, we got wild drums. And I think the bass was holding down the rhythmic aspect and possibly one element of the drums, but there was some polymeter being played on top of it. It wasn't allowed to simply be 4/4. It was not allowed to be standard. There had to be that chaotic element to it, and the drummer was including that through the polymeter, which is going to be something I probably talk about a lot here because there's a lot of it going on. So, just on this bass level, and it's not even like, okay, so my brain is moving just as fast as the song I just listened to. I'm really trying to process what I heard. So even on the bass level, looking at single sections, looking at that single heavy section, we have polymetric ideas, we have intense layering, we have wall of sound concepts, we have dissonance, and we just have an overall display of, the wall of sound thing. We have screaming, we have guitars that are doing their own thing and also just kind of being dissonant with themselves. There really wasn't a point in here where the guitar was playing consonant chords. If there was a dyad going, it was a highly tense dyad. We're talking about, a half note apart, playing a B and a B flat together or something like that, and having that dissonance amplified by the overdrive and the compression and just everything about the electric guitar. I mean, the idea of the amplifier, right? When we think about an amplifier, we think about an increase of sound, but actually an amplifier amplifies everything. And dissonance is going to be part of that. If you're going to play something dissonant, it is going to sound more dissonant when played through an amplifier. And then, like I said, we're also, putting drive on it. We're putting compression on it. We're really adding that metal crackle and bite, that sharper edge that metal guitar tones have. A lot of that comes from crackle, and a lot of dissonance is sort of, it can blend into that crackle and be amplified again. So that's how we get those really shrill, almost screechy sounds. Is we'll take two notes that have a lot of dissonance between them and then run them through elements that are going to amplify that dissonance. And it is a strong aspect of this genre, it sounds like, and a couple of other genres too. It's become a sound that I find synonymous with a lot of noisier bands. It is just the complete rejection of consonants, and it's interesting, I think, anyways, that it has become a sound that works. It's really interesting to see music evolve in ways like that. For a long time, dissonance was something you wanted to avoid, or you could lightly play around with, like when we entered into the age of bebop, and we started pulling in notes that sounded like wrong notes, but they were intentionally used to add spice to what the soloist was doing. And then we start moving into 20th century classical and metal, and dissonance is just another style of music, right? We've listened to classical songs on here that are nothing but dissonance. We've listened to some free jazz that plays around with dissonant ideas. So it's really cool just to see music, not music evolve, because the music itself hasn't evolved, but the techniques that are viable, that's a weird word too. The techniques that get utilized in music, widespread, not just like a single instance, but something that gets widespread, even if it's just through a single genre. Like, I do not expect to hear a lot of dissonance in pop music or radio rock, but to hear an entire genre really dig into this sound, whether it is metalcore or, not metalcore, mathcore, or any of the other noisier stuff, post metal, or free jazz, or contemporary classical. Just seeing these ideas that used to be things that you would avoid or use sparingly being utilized heavily in a composition, that's just really interesting, at least to me. But yeah, so getting back to the song, we have this one section that is extremely chaotic, dense, dissonant, disruptive, and we expand that one step further and we look at what comes around it. And this one section is surrounded by this quieter 5/4. I don't remember exactly what was here. I remember there was a single guitar. I think they were playing single note melody line. I could be wrong though. It could have been strummed dyads, rhythmically strummed dyads. But the vocals weren't here because the vocals were yelling on top of that super chaotic section. But it was sparse, right? So we have this dissonance here and this back and forth, this highly contrasting two sections. But it's not even that we get a long time to spend in them. Usually when we would go back and forth like this, we might see them as full sections, something like a quieter verse and a heavier or louder chorus. And they might be 16 bars each or so. And here, what are they, 2? 4 bars each, maybe tops? We are bouncing between them rapidly. We can't even keep the simple idea of structure on this minute level of how fast we're moving between these sections into anything that would be easy to follow. We are running through this at a breakneck speed. And we move from these two ideas into some other ideas where we take the heaviness of that second section and we look at a different way to go about it. We don't really bring back that soft element. We go to a different type of heavy. And I think this is actually where we got those squealy, highly dissonant tones. Yeah, so now our song structure is getting even muddier because it really depends on how you look at it too. Is that back and forth between the soft and the sparse and the heavily layered one section? Should we look at that, assuming that they're both 4 bars each? Do we look at that as an 8-bar section? Is that the A section of the song? I don't think that's a bad way to go about viewing it, because they are paired together. However, the latter half of it, the heavy section, begins to alternate versus a different section, and the sparse section came in early by itself. We had an extended period of it. So I don't think so. So now we have rapid fire of A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, and now we have B, C, B, C, B, C. And the song structure gets incredibly convoluted quickly. So even looking at the highest level of how the song gets structured, we're going to see a lot of these chaotic elements. And we have parts of sections coming in later as well. And we're alternating between new ideas and old ideas. So, yeah, this whole song exists on this fabric of chaos. And it is interwoven into every element of the song. Whether it is a more minute, sparse element or super heavy, super layered, there's always chaos layered into it, whether it is specifically in the section itself or in its juxtaposition to what comes around it. So it is a wild song. It took me on a ride. That's for sure. But we can even extend this element to the production. So a lot of the layered sections have that wall of sound production where there's not a lot of spatial positioning of the instruments. Everything sort of is just there. Like there is some aspects to like the guitars are panned to the side a hair. The drums kind of have a little bit of a width to them. Vocals and bass are panned forward or placed forward. But it's such a tight mix that it doesn't really feel like it's spacious. We don't have instruments around us. We have instruments on us. That kind of idea. We are in the mix rather than having instrumentation surrounding us. And what that does is it creates a greater element for these instruments to overlap, to step on each other's toes, especially when the composition itself is as chaotic as it is. There's not a lot of places where instruments can sort of dance around each other's lines, fill in the spaces or the rests that somebody else is doing. Every instrument, it's constantly going all the time. The only one that's really taking any breaths or rests would be the vocals, because they have to take breaths. But when they are going, there is no accommodation for this extra line. They just sort of exist on top of the noise that's already there, and just creating those extra layers of noise. And it comes together into, that wall of sound where you can hear all of the weight of these instruments. You can hear the notes of them. I can hear the bass notes. I can hear the guitar notes. I can hear, the drums, the cymbals, or the double bass kicks, or the snares, or whatever. But it's really difficult to hear them individually, to separate them out from the song and focus entirely on them. The song really demands that you listen to everything, that you see the forest. It almost actively refuses to allow you to see the individual trees. That is the modern wall of sound to me. It is kind of cramming everything into such a small space that it becomes this amorphous force of music. Where was I going with? Oh, yeah. So a lot of the sections have that. However, we get to like the 3, 4, 5 minute mark, somewhere in the middle, and we go to this extended panathon. And this is, at least for me, one of the most uneasy aspects of the track. I don't know what it is with heavy panning. I don't know if it's a human thing or if it's just a me thing, but heavy contrasting panning makes me nauseous. I've only recently really discovered this. I've started to see this trend in some songs where I become, physically, I don't want to say physically ill, but it has a physical reaction on me to hear sounds like what we had here, where we had, it started out so nice too. I thought it was cool because we had the guitar on both sides, and it was a wall of sound section, and we had the guitar just riffing away. And then after a bar, we would get the right side only, and then the left side only, and then back to the center, and then a center, right, left, center, right, left, center. It was really cool. Then they expanded this idea, though, when the vocals cut out and they went to a sort of a bridge. And we started to see more rapidly changing panning on the guitar, where instead of every bar, we would have every half bar, and then every beat. And then it seemed like we were doing eighth note beats and just constantly flipping back and forth. And yeah, I was having a physical reaction to this. I don't know what it is. I do not enjoy it. And I don't know if I enjoy it on a technical level. I think it's interesting. I do enjoy the use of panning or other digital elements to amplify a song. I think it's an interesting way to go about writing music. A lot of the music that I'm used to sort of stays within its lane as far as production goes. It makes sure that everything can be heard, it's EQ'd well, it's spaced out properly, and that's kind of it. I've been introduced to a lot of really interesting ways of using the production as an instrument itself. Well, not as an instrument, as a way to affect the storytelling. And I've talked about some prog bands from the 70s who have utilized volume dynamics and panning dynamics to help tell the story that they want to tell. And I think this is another way of doing that. It's very experimental. It's very modern. And it fits in with this chaos, this dissonance, this unruly aspect that the song works within. It is an unruly sort of production style that says, hey, we're going to kick all the rules out and we really don't care what comes from it. We're going to be noisy. We're going to play noisy. We're going to we're going to change sections of the song rapidly. We're going to do what we want to do. And that extends to the production. We will play a single note and every beat change which ear it's in. And that's going to be it. We're going to have a drum under it and a bass doing a little thing. And that's going to be the whole section. And you're going to like it. And if you don't like it, well, you can take your headphones off. You can turn the song off. But, that's what we're putting out there. And I really enjoy that sort of rebellious aspect of pushing music to its boundaries. That is one of my big things that I've come to enjoy about, especially this community, is showing me a lot of stuff on the fringe that is pushing the boundaries of music. I'm so used to, well, prior to this, mostly consonant music that's been played on the radio or is classical or jazz. That's really my starting point with music coming into this channel, and being exposed to a lot of this stuff on the fringe, whether I've enjoyed it or not, has, given me an appreciation for the ways that music is evolving outside of those old ideas of, consonants and proper chord progression and not even proper but just, a semblance of chord progression. And hearing bands like this that are just noisy, and I say that in the most endearing way. I don't want, I've said noisy a few times. I don't want anyone to think that I'm talking down to this band or any of the bands probably this week that we're going to check out that are similar to this, just like, Dillinger yesterday. I don't mean that in a negative way. They are aiming to make very disruptive, noisy songs, and they are achieving their goal. It is a description of the song, not necessarily a condemnation of what they're attempting or what they did. So yeah, it's just another way, another layer to add that chaos in there, that disruptive element. It is not just disruptive in the timbres that they're using. It's not just disruptive in the structure. It's not just disruptive in the volume levels. It's also disruptive in the production. It does not adhere to typical production or standardized production ideas. And even in this part, I feel like they went just a hair too long with it. And maybe that was just part of my, discomfort listening to the section. But a lot of these sections, like I said at the beginning, blistering speed. We're moving between A and B rapidly. Then we introduce C and we're moving between B and C rapidly, flipping back and forth. And we're just moving through the song at a ridiculous speed. And then we slow it down here for this extended, what did I call it? The panathon. Just constantly panning and speeding up of how fast the frequency of what we're panning, and then just this whole section, we stay here for so long, and it's the one part that really did not work for me, and it's the one that they decided to stay in the longest. But again, just disruption. They have they have many other aspects of the song that are more traditionally musical. Even if they are abrasive, it fits within this genre. And they decide to stay on the aspect that is the least musical, just playing a single note and bouncing it back and forth in the ears. So, like I said, just kind of fits with that punk, rebellious, we're going to make the kind of music we want to make attitude that I get from this. What was that last part I wanted to talk about? I don't know. It's kind of annoying. Maybe it'll come back to me. I do want to talk about their callbacks, though. They don't have a lot of them, but I did think it was interesting that we brought back the screeching dyad from like the third section of the track at the end and combined it with a brand new section. And I'm really curious when I dig into the lyrics. We'll see if anything's in there, and kind of see if there's anything that might allude to this one case of it. If a band has that idea in their mind of reusing riffs or lines that they've written before outside of repeating a section in full, it's usually something the band does. It is an aspect of their composition. It might not appear in every song, but it is going to appear more often than not. Like I've mentioned before, it is a fantastic tool at increasing depth and making a song feel more cohesive. It is very, not very, it's a little odd to me to hear a single idea be brought up in a completely new context. It's not even a merging of multiple ideas that we have heard before. It's literally just moving to the end, and it kind of sounds like they made this final section and it was missing something. And possibly the guitarist was like, hey, we're missing some higher end. I can put some screeches in there again. And they're like, okay, that sounds good. He's like, let me go record some. And they're like, no, we'll just pull the ones from earlier. Like, that's what it feels like to me. It doesn't feel like something that was planned. It feels like something that just kind of happened, right? And so, like I said, it makes me interested in more of their music to see if they do this often, because to me it felt out of place. It was a callback. I recognized it from earlier, but there weren't any other elements of calling back or foreshadowing throughout the song. The song was fairly linear in a lot of ways, without in linear in that chaotic manner where you never know where you're going next, and there really isn't a lot of looking back to the past. It's about this constant drive forward. I mentioned at the beginning of the song that it moves through a breakneck speed. We're always going to the next idea. So this looking back and reutilizing something from the past is an interesting idea that kind of doesn't fit in the section, but also stands out because of its inclusion. So, yeah, I'm a bit upset though. I can't remember what that other one thing is. I don't know. I guess I'm going to dive into the lyrics real quick and see if I can figure anything out there. And this is an interesting set of lyrics. So it is, at least to me, seemingly, if you ignore the first stanza, it is very on the nose, very, very surface level. It's this constant idea of never being satisfied, right? With this penchant for conquering almost. There's no stopping it now. Conquest is at hand. There's a thirst for more, a need for more. We're never satisfied, never dormant. We go on. We conquer all that humans that are left. This is our home. We're still building, still building. We're still building and still building. That's how the song ends. Even after it seems conquering everything and making a new place to live, we can't even stop there, having found rest in the conquest. We are unsatisfied with what we have and must continue to build it, must continue to have more or continue to have different. That progress will not stop because we are not satisfied. So all of that sort of lines up real well, and I think it also kind of moves at a breakneck speed. We go from this conquest into something that should be the resolution. We fought, we now have our home. That's the end of the story, but they continue to tie the themes of never being satisfied into even this resolution, into the happier ever after moment. But we do all of that in 4 or 5 stanzas. Really wraps everything together rather quickly, and tells the story in just a rapid succession of ideas that it immediately brings to note the idea of never being satisfied to the end. It doesn't allow that moment to really linger by itself, divorced from this idea of the constant building at the end. However, when we bring all that in with the first stanza, I get a bit lost. The first stanza almost seems to be, it seems like it wants to start the story out with something a little bit more mystified. But let me just read this. Wide eyes help you stand out, and the fact that you bear all skin, silhouettes keep me thinking about the habits you are in. Watch us blanket all things and solidify all claims, hopes, dreams, we're here to make ourselves better. And then all of that, very poetic, almost hopeful, leads to this conquest and this dominance and this lack of satisfaction. Very interesting. It also kind of, I don't know. Maybe it's because I've been watching Westworld. I'm getting like a robotic uprising kind of idea, because it says you stand out and bear the skin. Silhouettes keep me thinking about the habits you're in. It reminds me, I mean, specifically bringing up the skin, habits, silhouettes kind of is the idea of something that is not the truth but looks like it. Shadows look like us, but obviously they're not. That kind of idea. The silhouette is an outline of an object or a person. And of course, the title of the song is Transitions from Persona to Object. There is a transitioning from one idea to another. So, could this be about some sort of thing that humans build and they think won't come to anything past what they've intended for, and this thing outgrows humans' use and they become sentient and fight back and they defeat the humans? He says, conquer all the humans that are left. And then they build their new home, but they're never satisfied. So are they just repeating the sins of the father? Are they enacting the same things that they might have been rebelling against the humans for? I don't know. That's kind of where I'm going with this. Kind of changed everything there, bringing about that opening thing. We see the same flaws in what we build as what we are. Man, that hits hard too, because that's not just about AI. That's anything we create. Are our children anything more than what we are? Can they outgrow our faults and flaws, especially if we are their primary caretaker, their primary role model? Will they exist to repeat the same cycles we did, make the same mistakes we have? I don't know. I don't even know if I'm interpreting this correctly, but that's where my mind's going reading these. However, though, I will say that this kind of lines up with the music quite well, because a lot of the times the lyrics, actually all the times the lyrics came in, were aggressive. They were wall of sound sections. We didn't have any cleans. We didn't have any vocals that came in during soft sections. So this appetite for more fits well with the overabundance of layers, fits well with the overabundance of noise. And this conquest, constantly moving forward, constantly creating more or dominating more or conquering more. There's always this imperialistic edge to a lot of these words. Even when they find their new home, they still need to overtake the more, right? They still need to find dominance in the more. They continue to build. Eventually, they will run out of horizontal land to build, and they must go and dominate or conquer the sky. Assuming that this is a cyclical process they'll be in forever, which is sort of what is suggested by the repetition here at the end. In which case, this lack of satisfaction, this lack of being dormant, of always having to conquer the next big thing, like I said, it has very imperialistic ideas to it, which the chaos really works for. There's a lack of rest, there's a lack of satisfaction, there's always that disruption. Nothing can ever be as it is. Everything must always be disrupted for the next phase. So yeah, the music works well for this idea, I think, especially if it is about robots, androids, AI kind of idea. I think just having that, thinking of technology and sort of the chaos of electricity works well in that. But I might be reading into that one. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what this entity is that has begun to conquer the humans. Could be anything, honestly. Anyways, those are my thoughts on Botch's transitions from persona to object. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this one or not. Anything that stuck out to you, anything that I touched on that you thought I should expand it on, anything that I didn't talk about you wish I had. Go ahead and let me know in the comments. I'd love to read them, get everybody else's perspective on this track as well. Above the comment section is a description box, and in there is a link for Linktree that'll take you to this menu right here. Has everything related to the channel, or me, actually. The stuff I've been listening to, the music I've created, you can find that stuff in there as well. If you're just interested about the channel, you can follow me on Twitter, join the Patreon, join the Discord community, pick up some Critical Reactions merch. It's all in there and more. Above the description box, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. We have one more video that came out 15 minutes. Jeez, man. This might be one of the biggest ratios of song length to analysis I've had. What was that, a 7-minute song, and we're at 47 minutes in the video right now? Wild. Alright, so the special selection has already come out. That was 16 minutes ago now. Special selection is awesome. We hear a lot of really cool stuff in there. Go ahead and check that out. We're listening to some Haken today in that. So if that interests you, like I said, go check that out. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.